Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro denounced the false criminal narrative being used by the U.S. government against the Bolivarian nation. In the Caribbean region, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Bahamas, and Cuba are bracing for the impact of now Hurricane Melissa. And in Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue to violate the ceasefire agreement with demolitions and attacks against the Gaza Strip. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin the news. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro stressed that since the U.S. cannot accuse Venezuela of having weapons of mass destruction, they opted to construct a false, criminal, and offensive narrative against the Bolivarian nation.
Now they underestimate us and say that we are crazy too and make up stories. They can't say anything because no one believes what they say.
Venezuela tenemos armas de destrucción masiva. No se han atrevido a decirlo, por lo menos.
Because they couldn't say that Maduro and Venezuela have weapons of mass destruction. They haven't dared to say it. At least they can't say that we are building a nuclear weapon.
A las ciudades de Estados Unidos no lo pueden decir, ¿verdad? Y como no pueden decirlo, se inventan.
They can't say that we have missiles pointed at the cities of the United States. They can't say it, can they? And since they can't say it, they make up an extravagant, vulgar, criminal, and totally false story.
Ya demostradamente falso.
On Saturday, Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Paulino Lopez led the training of the militia in the capital, Caracas. Amidst the Coastal Defense Independence 200 exercises, Paulino highlighted the dedication of this military entity as a pivotal instrument in safeguarding national sovereignty. He underscored the significance of this component of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces in the nation's military exercises and emphasized the importance of these maneuvers in protecting the national territory from threats and monitoring drug trafficking routes in order to contain them. Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced steps to revoke the citizenship of far-right politician Leopoldo Lopez after he called for foreign sanctions and intervention against the country. The Vice President stated yesterday the President of the Republic, Nicolas Maduro, filed an appeal with the Supreme Court of Justice to revoke the citizenship of Leopoldo Lopez in accordance with Article 130 of the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Liberator Simón Bolívar Organic Law, due to his grotesque, criminal, and illegal call for the military invasion of Venezuela, the permanent promotion of the economic blockade, as well as the call for the mass murder of Venezuelans in complicity with foreign governments and enemies. Finally, he specified the Foreign Ministry and the Customs Office will immediately proceed in accordance with the relevant legal steps to cancel the passport of the above-mentioned individual. The Venezuelan state has sufficient resources to guarantee the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the Republic against foreign powers and those who seek to undermine national independence. And Brazil would not accept any foreign intervention in Venezuela. This was stated on Friday in Brasilia by Celso Amorim, the presidential advisor for foreign policy and one of the most influential voices in President Luis Ignacio Lula Silva's administration. In an interview with a European media outlet, Amorim reaffirmed that the decision over who should govern Venezuela belongs exclusively to the Venezuelan people, warning that any invasion of the neighboring country could set the entire region on fire and trigger serious crises across the continent. The diplomat also voiced Brazil's rejection of extrajudicial executions in the Caribbean and covert operations by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, emphasizing that his government does not want regional turmoil. Finally, he expressed deep concern over recent U.S. attacks on vessels in the Caribbean, saying they were carried out without any evidence linking them to criminal activity.
What we really cannot accept is external intervention, because ID will not be accepted. ID will generate immense resentment in Brazil, also creating real refugee problems in Colombia, which could set South America ablaze. Brazil is clearly concerned about the use of force or the threat of its use, that is, The threat of clandestine methods such as those used by the CIA to overthrow governments,
Destinos como por ejemplo la CIA,
And the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America suspended the far-right government that will take office in the plurinational state of Bolivia because its anti-immigrant, anti-Latin American, pro-imperialist and colonialist behavior is not in line with the principles of the alliance. Through an official communique, the bloc stated this suspension does not affect the permanent, affectionate and supportive ties we maintain with the Bolivian people, with whom we will continue to work and accompany in their development and well-being. We declare that the public statements issued against Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua by the far-right government are totally unacceptable. The statement continues, ALBA countries have accompanied the Bolivian people since their integration, contributing to historic achievements in education, health, and economic development. More than 1 million people have become literate through popular education programs. Thanks to this alliance, the voice of the Bolivian people has resonated strongly in our America and around the world. It concludes this suspension will remain in effect while the political conditions in Bolivia are evaluated with the aim of protecting the founding principles of ALBA and ensuring that the organization continues to be an instrument of unity, sovereignty and social justice for all the peoples of our America. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the Caribbean region, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Bahamas, and Cuba are bracing for the impact of now Hurricane Melissa. With winds of over 125 kilometers per hour, former tropical storm Melissa has just been upgraded to hurricane. It is now located 345 kilometers south of Jamaica with a sluggish west and north progression. By early next week, it might become a Category 5 hurricane, but regardless of its category, Melissa is expected to bring catastrophic amounts of rain, which pose a serious risk for flash flooding and landslides across portions of Jamaica, southern Dominican Republic, and southern Haiti. The National Hurricane Center has forecast 25 inches of rain for parts of Jamaica and up to 35 inches of rain for southern Haiti through next week. Meanwhile, Cuban civil defense intensifies security measures in the east of the country and Camagüey as Hurricane Melissa approaches. The Civil Defense General Staff established an alert phase starting at 3 p.m. local time Saturday in all eastern provinces. Authorities maintain close attention to the storm's development as it threatens the island's territory. Precisely in the east, work is underway with tree pruning, sewer cleaning, and evacuation strategies. The Civil Defense Ministry said the main objective is to protect people's lives as well as material resources, animals, and agricultural products. And Hurricane Melissa has left at least 4 dead and a dozen injured in Haiti, most of the fatalities being caused by a landslide in Fontamara, Port-au-Prince. Well, authorities issue an orange alert in the southeastern departments of the country due to the impact of the weather event. The Ministry of Civil Protection of the Caribbean nation is carrying out protection and evacuation operations due to heavy rains and the risk of flooding in the insular areas of the country. They also report that these rainfalls caused the Saint Martin River to flood in the west of the country and the destruction of several homes in the northwest in Port-au-Prince. The city of Buenos Aires, Argentina was affected this Saturday by torrential rains, leaving several regions flooded and with power outages. More than 100 millimeters of rain reportedly fell in the region, triggering floods that left more than 34,000 citizens without power and affected public transportation and traffic. The relentless rains severely affected municipalities such as San Martin and Lanús. In this context, authorities have issued an orange weather alert in several other provinces as rainfall is expected to continue. The civil defense urged the population to take precautions and not to travel on streets, avenues, and roads that pose a risk due to stagnant water. And meanwhile, in Uruguay, the Meteorological Institute issued a yellow alert for heavy rains, while the authorities warned that the national territory will experience strong rainfall together with high winds. However, they emphasized that these weather conditions may progressively subside. In this regard, they urged citizens to avoid flooded streets and to remain alert to information from the authorities. The yellow alert comes within the effective period of a special advisory issued on Friday afternoon. And the yet unsolved death of a 21-year-old female employee at McDonald's outlet in the University District of Santiago de Chile sparked an anti-imperialist protest by the Inter-Union Workers Association. Protesters gathered outside the establishment denouncing the contemptuous treatment the transnational corporation gives its employees and the precarious conditions facing young workers in the country. A young woman named Hilda Leiva was last seen on October 22nd via CCTV. After her absence was noticed, some employees requested the place be closed to search for her, but management refused to do so. The employees called the police, who failed to search the premises. The young woman's body was found the next day by another employee. A police inquiry is underway. In Venezuela, celebrations continue for the canonization of Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Mother Carmen Rendiles. Since Saturday morning, hundreds of parishioners have flocked to the country's churches to celebrate the first Venezuelan saints recognized by the Catholic Church. As part of the event, 500 stalls, 60,000 hosts, over 400 cups made by artisans from the state of Lara, and 10,000 flowers from the state of Mérida were distributed in Caracas. In addition, this Sunday, October 26, the birth of Saint Jose Gregorio Hernandez will also be commemorated, the first celebration after his canonization. And the Divina Pastora Church in Caracas has joined the celebrations for the first Venezuelan saints. Through this weekend, the parish will officiate masses commemorating the birthday anniversary of Saint Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez. Church leaders invited worshippers to join the masses and a pilgrimage in honor of the man known as the Doctor of the Poor. We now have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Israeli army continues to violate the ceasefire with demolitions and attacks against the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Ministry of Health reported 19 people killed and 7 wounded in the last 48 hours, bringing the total to over 68,519 dead and more than 170,000 wounded since the aggression began. Health authorities stated that the occupation forces demolished several residential buildings in the south of the Gaza Strip. The UN agency UNRWA warned of the growing need for shelters and winter supplies and also denounced the Israeli blockade on the entry of aid materials stored in Jordan and Egypt. In this context, the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip continues to deepen despite the truce signed between the Palestinian resistance Hamas and the Israeli regime. According to the Gaza Civil Defense, there has been no change on the ground after the limited entry of trucks with humanitarian aid that did not meet the minimum needs of the population. In this context, the authority urged the international community to take immediate and effective measures to begin the process of reconstructing the coastal enclave. Meanwhile, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees warned of the upcoming arrival of lower temperatures associated with the winter season, as it would exacerbate the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territory. And at least 3 people have been killed in southern Lebanon during attacks by Israeli troops. According to official reports, a man was killed after Israeli drones targeted a vehicle in the Nabatijeh district. Another car was also struck in the same region, with 2 more people being killed. Despite the ceasefire announced November last year, the occupation has continued to launch airstrikes on southern Lebanon in violation of United Nations 1701 resolution dating back to August 2006, which called for a full cessation of hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel. And in the Ivory Coast, vote counting is underway for the presidential elections after the closure of polls. From 8 a.m. local time, polling stations were opened throughout the country after some delays. At least 8.7 million people were called to participate in the 2025 presidential elections, where 5 candidates are running for the post, including incumbent head of state Alassane Ouattara, who seeks a 4th consecutive term. In anticipation of possible protests, the government deployed around 44,000 security personnel throughout the country and banned unauthorized demonstrations during the election period. Provisional results are expected to be unveiled in the coming days. And in Ireland, candidate Catherine Connolly is set to become the country's next president after her rival conceded defeat following Friday's election. Connolly, a left-wing pro-Palestinian independent candidate, emerges as winner with over 64.7% of the votes, as ballot counting is still underway. The final result was cemented on Saturday, with main rival Heather Humphreys of the centre-right Fine Gael party conceding defeat and congratulating Connolly after having obtained only 28.2% of votes. The independent politicians, who had a strong voter support according to pre-election polls, will succeed Michael D. Higgins, becoming the nation's 10th president and 3rd woman to hold the post.
Who listens and who reflects and who speaks when it's necessary, and a voice for peace, a voice that builds on our policy of neutrality, a voice that articulates the existential threat posed by climate change, and a voice that recognises the tremendous work being done, the length and breadth of the country, and we need to recognise that and ensure it is properly resourced. But my message is, use your voice in every way you can, because a republic and a democracy needs constructive questioning. And together we can shape a new republic that values everybody, that values and champions diversity, and that takes confidence in our own identity, our Irish language, our English language, and the new people who have come to our country.
In France, the National Assembly discusses the 2026 finance bill promoted by the national government amidst the economic and political crisis facing the country. The project in question seeks to tighten public finances through $1 million cuts and fiscal measures. If approved, cuts exceeding $34 billion and the suspension or reduction of social benefits are expected. According to experts, the measure could weaken local finances and slow down public investment, especially in the ecological transition and essential services. Ahead of the key debate, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu called on Parliament to work differently than before, to work for compromise.
Our parliamentary history has been shaped by confrontations. It is time for it to become one of compromise. We can no longer govern through the discipline of a single camp, but through a culture of rigorous debate between parliamentarians who initially hold different convictions. This is a quiet revolution in Parliament, one that consists of not asking the other side to implement its entire program, as if it alone had the majority. This revolution must begin now, because it is this cultural change that modern democracy calls for. The government is ready to engage in an open and transparent debate on these issues before the French people, including by amending our own text during the session, or by giving political groups access to the technical expertise of the various relevant government departments to assist with their amendments. Once again, we must work differently.
In the United States, polling stations opened Saturday in New York for in-person early voting for one of the year's most closely watched elections, the mayoral race. Socialist Democrat Zohran Mamdani leads the polls against Republican Curtis Sliwa and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, also a Democrat but running as an independent. Mamdani has managed to energize liberal voters by advocating for universal free child care, free buses, and a rent-free freeze for New Yorkers living in about 1 million rent-regulated apartments. Being a Muslim, he has also strongly condemned Israel's war on Gaza, for he has been assailed by Cuomo. Incumbent Mayor Eric Adams, who remains still on the ballot, withdrew from the race last month through his support behind Cuomo. New York has allowed early voting since 2019, and it has become relatively popular. In June's mayoral primary, about 35% of the ballots were cast early and in person. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.